There's an invisible force draining your energy right now, and it's not your job, not the government, not your past mistakes. It's something far more dangerous. Yet most people never see it until their peace is already gone. It's the people sitting right next to you, the ones who clap when you win but secretly pray you lose, the ones who disguise envy as advice, who call themselves your friends while quietly clipping your wings. These are not accidents. These are patterns. And if you don't recognize them, they will poison your focus, suffocate your ambition, and make you believe the cage they built around you is freedom. Think about it. How much of your stress, your self-doubt, your exhaustion actually comes from the company you keep? You don't rise by surrounding yourself with people who resent your growth. You don't build strength by walking with those who fear your power. And you'll never find peace if your daily environment is full of voices addicted to chaos, gossip, and emotional manipulation. So let me ask you directly, who's sitting at your table right now? Who do you allow access to your mind, your time, your soul? Because your life is not only shaped by your choices, it's shaped by the people you allow to whisper in your ear. Epicurus, the great Stoic philosopher, warned us long ago. Associate with those who help you become your best self. That's not just wisdom. That's survival. Because in a world full of emotional vampires, subtle manipulators, toxic cheerleaders, and chronic victims, choosing the wrong company is the fastest way to lose yourself. And today, I'm going to reveal the 11 types of people who are quietly destroying your self-worth, hijacking your inner clarity, and keeping you smaller than you were ever meant to be. But more importantly, you'll learn how to remove them from your life, not with bitterness or anger, but with the kind of emotional intelligence, discipline, and unshakable boundaries that make you unstoppable. So if you're ready to take back your power, if you're ready to stop entertaining what weakens you and start building an iron mind, hit that like button to join the Stoic revolution we're building here. Subscribe so you never miss the strategies that will protect your peace and sharpen your strength. Because here's the truth, not everyone deserves a seat at your table. And today, I'm going to show you exactly who to cut off and how to walk forward in silence, calm, powerful, and untouchable. Let's begin. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Epictetus, you know this person. They don't shout. They don't throw tantrums. They don't need to. And yet, every interaction with them leaves a subtle, corrosive effect, like a slow drip of acid seeping into your thoughts. You leave the conversation feeling heavier, quieter, less certain. They complain about everything, about their job, their partner, the weather, the government, society, anything and everything except themselves. And the most insidious part? They never act. They talk endlessly, but action, the very thing that changes circumstances, is absent. They immerse themselves in grievances while refusing to lift a finger to alter them, when complaining becomes a weapon of emotional sabotage. At first, it might seem harmless. Everyone vents from time to time. Stoicism does not demand perfection, but chronic complaining is not casual venting. It is habitual. It is intentional or unintentional training in bitterness. The complainer doesn't seek solutions. They seek validation of their victimhood, reinforcement of a worldview rooted in helplessness and blame. And herein lies the danger. If you are around this person long enough, if you absorb enough of their narrative, you begin to see the world through their lens. Your work feels insufficient. Your relationships seem flawed. Your inner calm, the steady anchor you once held, begins to crack. This is no accident. This is emotional contamination. It seeps into your mind, reshaping your perception, dulling your discipline, and eroding the Stoic principle that what matters is your own response, not the external chaos around you. Stoicism teaches that your mind is your citadel. Guard it. Every complaint you absorb is a stone thrown at the walls of that citadel. If you don't notice, those walls crumble silently, and your reason begins to bend under the weight of someone else's discontent. In other words, complaining is contagious, but wisdom is even more contagious. Choose which influence you allow inside your mind. What Stoicism teaches about chronic complainers, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. And not to be pessimistic, but to be prepared. because a Stoic doesn't expect perfect people, but they refuse to be corrupted by their imperfections. This is the Stoic blueprint for interacting with the world. It is not a call to cynicism or bitterness. It is a guide to maintaining your inner citadel while surrounded by imperfection. The chronic complainer lives in direct violation of this principle. They reject personal responsibility. They refuse to train their mind. They cultivate resentment as if it were a medal to display, wearing it proudly while expecting the world to conform to their grievances. In Stoic terms, constant complaining is a symptom of an untrained mind, a mind that fails to recognize the fundamental Stoic distinction between what is within its control and what is not. The complainer wastes energy railing against circumstances, other people, and events, forgetting that their true power lies in their own judgment, their own actions, their own discipline. Every complaint they voice is a surrender of agency. It is a voluntary relinquishment of control over their own perception, replacing reason with bitterness, clarity with distortion. The Stoic observes such behavior not with anger, but with awareness. This is a mind enslaved to external circumstances, a mind unaccustomed to self-mastery, a mind that mistakes irritation for authenticity and despair for wisdom. To engage with a chronic complainer without losing your own equilibrium requires mental armor. You recognize that their words are not truths to internalize, they are projections of weakness. A Stoic does not absorb the weight of another's discontent. Instead, you remain grounded, disciplined, and mindful. You understand that your tranquility is sacred, your agency inviolable, and your growth dependent on cultivating resilience in the face of habitual negativity. In essence, chronic complainers provide a test, a chance to practice detachment, emotional discipline, and the fundamental Stoic principle that virtue, and nothing else, is under your control. The complainer cannot taint your mind unless you allow it. Your task is to maintain clarity, to act rightly, and to uphold the Stoic standard regardless of the noise around you. Why you must distance yourself from complainers in Stoicism, we learn that your mind is your fortress. Your inner citadel is sacred, and it is your duty to protect it from incursions that weaken reason, clarity, and purpose. Chronic complainers are not evil. They are, in essence, infected by their own dissatisfaction. But their emotional contagion is real, and it spreads silently, often without overt aggression. They plant seeds of doubt in your confidence, subtly questioning your choices, your ambitions, your sense of what is possible. Small irritations, an unexpected delay, a minor frustration, are magnified into crises, as if the world itself were conspiring against them. And in doing so, they attempt to draw you into the same web of agitation, distraction, and self-pity. The danger is that you may start to mirror them unconsciously. You may begin questioning your own peace, wondering if contentment is somehow undeserved. You may start overthinking minor setbacks, second-guessing your actions, or feeling guilt for simply experiencing calm while others remain in turmoil. This is the subtle art of energy depletion. They do not raise their voices. They do not need to. Their constant focus on negativity and helplessness quietly drains your vitality, eroding the foundation of your self-discipline, patience, and emotional resilience. A Stoic sees this clearly. The mind is trained to recognize infection before it takes hold. You do not fight the complainer with arguments or rebuttals. Those are exercises in futility. Instead, you protect your boundaries, maintain your equanimity, and guard your inner citadel. You accept that their dissatisfaction is theirs alone. It has no authority over your thoughts or your character. Distance is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. It is the disciplined act of refusing to allow another's weakness to dictate your own strength. By limiting exposure, you preserve mental clarity, emotional energy, and the capacity to act with purpose. You remain anchored in what is under your control, your judgments, your actions, your effort, while letting the complainer remain trapped in what they cannot control. The world, the people and events beyond their reasoned influence. Reflection questions for awareness. After spending time with someone, do you feel lighter or do you feel mentally drained? Have you caught yourself overthinking small annoyances after interacting with a complainer? Are you holding space for someone else's agitation at the cost of your own clarity? Remember, in the Stoic path, your peace is power. It is the foundation from which all virtuous action flows. Guard it relentlessly, and do not allow another's perpetual dissatisfaction to compromise it. How to handle chronic complainers, the Stoic way. The Stoics teach us that our minds are our most valuable possession. Protecting it is not optional, it is essential. Complainers seek to erode your clarity, patience, and inner equilibrium. But with deliberate discipline, you can maintain control and preserve your mental sanctuary. 1. Set psychological boundaries through strategic silence. You do not need to argue, lecture, or attempt to correct them. Engagement often fuels the fire. Attention reinforces their pattern. Instead, practice measured detachment. The next time someone repeats the same complaint for the third time, calmly ask, "That sounds frustrating. What are you planning to do about it?" If they stumble, deflect, or shift the topic, the truth becomes clear. They are not seeking solutions. They are seeking validation, sympathy, or distraction. By refusing to participate in this cycle, you withdraw the fuel of their emotional contagion. You do not punish them. You simply preserve your own rational mind. 2. Protect your energy. Your inner peace is your true wealth. Stoicism emphasizes mastery over the mind. Just because someone vents does not mean you owe them your focus. Your emotional energy is finite. If you allow it to be consumed by someone else's chronic dissatisfaction, you compromise your own ability to think clearly, act decisively, and pursue virtue. Guard your equilibrium. Treat your peace as you would a treasure chest, safe from intrusion, uncorrupted by the trivial storms of others. 3. Create emotional distance without abandoning kindness. You may remain courteous, compassionate, or supportive, but never at the expense of your soul. Maintain presence without immersion. You are not anyone's unpaid therapist, especially when the person is addicted to their own misery. The Stoics teach that your duty is not to correct every person's flaws, but to cultivate wisdom, resilience, and virtue within yourself. Reflection questions to sharpen awareness. Who in your life consistently leaves you emotionally drained after each conversation? Are you holding space for someone who has no genuine intention of growth or self-improvement? When was the last time your mood shifted not because of events, but because of someone else's negativity? Emotional intelligence, from a Stoic perspective, is knowing when to engage and when to withdraw. It is understanding that not every complaint is your responsibility, and not every voice requires your participation. The chronic complainer does not seek change. They seek attention, control, or distraction. If you do not recognize this, you risk becoming the next subject of their discontent. Your peace is your power. It is the foundation upon which every virtuous action and thoughtful decision is built. Guard it relentlessly. Withdraw where necessary. Act where you can. And remember the wisdom of Seneca. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Every minute spent in reactive engagement with habitual negativity is a minute stolen from your growth, your clarity, and your purpose. Let your silence, your boundaries, and your disciplined detachment be your statement of strength. Stand firm. Preserve your mind. Protect your peace. Have you ever known someone who always has a reason why they haven't started, why they can't change, or why life is too hard? They don't lack intelligence or opportunity, but they constantly blame circumstances, their past, or just bad timing. This is the excuse maker. And if you're not careful, their mindset will slowly infect yours, instilling doubt, complacency, and a diluted version of your potential. Excuses are more dangerous than failure. On the surface, they seem rational. I would do it, but now's not the right time. Not everyone is meant to succeed. Discipline isn't my personality. The truth? Excuses are fear in disguise. They create a false sense of comfort, a way to avoid the discomfort of growth. And this comfort comes at a price: your ambition, your self-worth, your evolution. Why excuse makers violate Stoic principles? Stoicism teaches that your power lies in what you can control, your thoughts, your effort, your discipline, your attitude. The excuse maker surrenders all of that. They hand over agency to circumstance, to chance, to other people, and call it realistic. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Yet excuse makers live in denial of this truth. And if you spend too much time with them, you may start to lower your own standards to match their comfort zone. Why you must distance yourself from excuse energy. Being around them is like running a marathon with weights tied to your ankles. You begin to think, maybe I'm pushing too hard. Maybe self-discipline is extreme. Slowly, average becomes acceptable, and excellence seems obsessive. Stoic reality is clear. Growth requires friction. Self-mastery demands responsibility. You cannot build a high-performance mindset in an environment that rewards excuses and punishes effort. How to handle excuse makers, the Stoic way. 1. Lead by example, not confrontation. The Stoic doesn't argue, they demonstrate. Let your habits, consistency, and discipline speak louder than words. You don't need to prove them wrong. You need to show what's possible when you take ownership of your life. 2. Guard your inner dialogue. Excuse makers embed their mindset into your language. Notice when you say, I'll try. I'll get to it when I can. Now isn't the right moment. Replace it with, I will. This matters. Let's go. This is emotional intelligence in action. Choosing words that reinforce action, not avoidance. 3. Build boundaries around your energy. You don't need to cut everyone off, but you must protect your time and space from people who normalize self-sabotage. If someone's justifying stagnation begins bleeding into your focus, step back. Reflection. Questions to sharpen your awareness. Who in your life always finds a reason not to act? Who seems to move through the world in endless hesitation, endlessly justifying inaction? Have their words ever crept into your own mind, making you question your ambition, your pace, your drive? Are your choices guided by your logic, your principles, your discipline, or by someone else's fear masquerading as wisdom? Remember this: the more you sweat in silence, the less you bleed in regret. Excuse makers aren't evil. They aren't inherently cruel, but they are dangerous. They train you to accept mediocrity. They whisper to soften your edge. They convince you to postpone your greatness until life magically becomes perfect. And the Stoics knew better. Life will never be perfect. But your effort can be. Choose effort. Choose action. And if walking that path alone is necessary, walk it with your head high, your shoulders square, and your heart steady. You always own the option of having no opinion. Marcus Aurelius. You probably know this type of person too. They always know who's dating whom, who failed, who said what, who succeeded, or so they claim. Their words are coated in charm, laced with secrets, steeped in insecurity. On the surface, they entertain. Beneath, they reveal a deeper truth. Gossip is the currency of the emotionally weak. Gossip is never harmless. It is contagious, and it is not casual. It is habitual, a mindset rooted in judgment, envy, and comparison. If you linger too long in its orbit, you will absorb it. You will begin questioning people based on rumor, wasting mental energy on noise instead of results, training your mind to look outward instead of inward. That is the true cost of gossip. It disconnects you from your values and from growth. The Stoics warned us, a life of virtue begins with one choice: focus only on what is within your control. Gossip is the opposite of that principle. It thrives on what others say and do, none of which you can control. Why gossipers are a threat to your self-worth. People who gossip to you will gossip about you. You are temporary utility in their drama. They bond through shared judgment, building false intimacy by tearing others down. If you engage, even passively, you co-sign their weakness. Worse, you weaken your own. Every moment spent in gossip is a moment stolen from your self-worth, your character, your discipline over your own mind. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. Gossip keeps you in observation mode. It's easier to talk about someone else's failures than confront your own. Gossip hijacks your emotional intelligence. These individuals are emotional tricksters. They present opinions as facts, weaponize charm to capture attention, and subtly shift your focus from self-awareness to self-comparison. But emotional intelligence begins when you recognize manipulation, and it strengthens when you refuse to play along. You do not need to fight it. You need to outgrow it. How to handle gossipers the Stoic way. 1. Do not engage. Withdraw with elegance. Silence is the most powerful response. When gossip arises, respond, "I don't really know them well enough to say," or better, "Let's discuss something that actually helps us grow." You do not need to scold. Simply refuse participation in mental laziness. 2. Recenter on what is in your control. You cannot stop others from speaking, but you can stop your mind from absorbing noise. Every time you focus on someone else's flaws, you delay your own growth, a luxury you cannot afford. 3. Audit your environment. Who thrives on the downfall of others? Who talks endlessly about people yet rarely about ideas, growth, or goals? Decide. You are not obligated to entertain weakness, no matter how charming it seems. Reflection. Questions for inner clarity. Have you repeated gossip only to later regret it? Are your conversations about people or about your work and purpose? Do you respect yourself enough to walk away from unproductive dialogue? Strong minds discuss ideas. Weak minds discuss people. Socrates' gossipers don't need your judgment, they need your absence. Every second spent feeding their drama is a second denied to your discipline, your growth, your peace. In a Stoic life, distraction is a luxury you cannot afford. You have a mission, a mind to protect, a soul to fortify. Next time gossip is whispered toward you, remember, silence is not weakness. It is wisdom in motion. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Epictetus. There is another type you know well, the silent envious. The one who does not clap when you win, who does not text congratulations, who looks you in the eyes while secretly hoping you fail. Envy is subtle. It is quiet. Sometimes it comes as fake smiles, backhanded compliments, or sudden distance when you progress. Envious people do not attack weaknesses, they attack strengths. Your growth is a mirror of everything they have chosen not to pursue. Why envy destroys relationships and self-worth. Envy is irrational. It focuses on what others have, not on what you can build. It diverts attention from effort, discipline, and virtue toward outcomes you cannot control. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Growth does not require public validation. It requires focus, perseverance, and detachment from comparison. The envious measure themselves against others. When you rise, they feel small. And instead of elevating with you, they pull subtly, consistently, sometimes cruelly to bring you down. The emotional toll. When tolerated too long, envy makes you shrink. You hesitate to celebrate your wins. You downplay success to avoid making others uncomfortable. Gradually, you begin to see your light as a burden. This is not humility. It is self-sabotage. You were not born to dim your light. You were born to live in alignment with purpose, to grow, to excel, to rise. Celebrate your achievements without guilt. Honor your victories. Protect your peace. How to handle the envious, the Stoic way. 1. Practice detachment. Their resentment is not your burden. Their wound is theirs to heal. You can be kind, gracious, and generous, but not responsible for fixing their insecurity. 2. Protect your peace by protecting your wins. Not everyone deserves access to your victories. Grow in silence when necessary. Share your success selectively with those who genuinely elevate. 3. Replace envy with admiration, both in yourself and others. Learn from the success of others instead of comparing. Celebrate your own progress without shame. A high-performance mindset includes self-respect and clarity of purpose. Reflection questions for inner alignment. Who goes quiet when you share good news? Have you dulled your shine to make others comfortable? Are you surrounded by cheerleaders or secret competitors? Success tests relationships more than failure ever will. Envy is never about you. It is about what someone else refuses to face in themselves. If you excuse their energy, you will mirror it. Confidence will feel like arrogance. Ambition, selfish. Staying small, safe, and silent. A compromise disguised as peace. But Stoicism teaches that peace does not come from shrinking. Peace comes from standing tall, clear-minded, virtuous, and unshakable. When someone cannot celebrate your light, walk away. True allies rise with it. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Seneca. We all know someone like this. The one who snaps at waiters, slams doors when things don't go their way, turns every disagreement into a battlefield, walks into a room and leaves emotional debris behind. They are the hot-tempered people who confuse emotional outbursts with strength. But here's the truth. A person ruled by their anger isn't powerful. They're possessed. And if you stay around them long enough, you risk becoming just like them, reactive, unstable, and ultimately weak. Anger is not a flex. It's a loss of command. In modern culture, we often glorify rage. Movies, music, and even politics portray outbursts as passion or power. But the Stoics saw it differently. Seneca didn't hold back. Anger is a brief madness. Control it or it will control you. And here's why. Anger makes you easy to manipulate. Anger clouds your judgment. Anger trades long-term wisdom for short-term domination. In other words, anger is the emotion of the undisciplined. Why hot-tempered people violate Stoic values. At the core of Stoicism is the principle of self-mastery, the ability to govern your own mind no matter what the outside world throws at you. But the hot-tempered live in constant emotional exposure. They are slaves to stimulus. Someone disrespects them, they explode. Something delays them, they erupt. A plan changes, they fall apart. That's not power, that's predictability. And predictability is weakness. Because if the world can provoke you at will, you're not in control, your environment is. How the hot-tempered sabotage you. When you're around angry people long enough, you begin to normalize their behavior. You brace for explosions. You walk on eggshells. You start justifying their outbursts. That's just how they are. But here's the psychological cost. Your emotional safety is compromised. Your own nervous system stays in defense mode. You begin reacting to life, not responding with clarity. Even worse, their anger will slowly train your mind to believe that reaction is power, when in truth, reaction is surrender. How to handle the hot-tempered, the Stoic way. 1. Master yourself before trying to manage them. You don't defeat a fire by throwing gasoline on it. The Stoic doesn't match rage with rage. They disarm chaos with composure. When someone explodes, you don't escalate. You observe. You breathe. You detach. This isn't weakness. It's emotional intelligence under pressure. 2. Withdraw your emotional availability. Anger addicts feed on your reaction. They want to provoke a response so they can justify their own behavior. Take that fuel away. Respond with clarity or not at all. Let them burn out in their own fire. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. 3. Choose peace over proximity. If someone's anger routinely invades your peace, walk away. Not out of hatred, but out of principle. You don't need to fix them. You need to protect you. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. And when dealing with the emotionally volatile, boundaries are non-negotiable. Reflection questions to build inner restraint. Who in your life cannot go a day without losing control? Have you ever started reacting more sharply just because they made it feel normal? Do you confuse silence with weakness, or do you understand it as power? He who angers you controls you. Here's what no one tells you. Anger looks powerful until it destroys everything it touches: careers, relationships, reputations, peace. People who let their temper run their lives eventually run out of people willing to walk beside them. The Stoics knew that the calmest person in the room is usually the strongest. Because they don't waste energy proving power, they conserve it. So if someone in your circle constantly burns hot, let them rage alone. You weren't made for war. You were made for mastery. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. You walk into the room and there they are. Tears, chaos, accusations. Everything is urgent. Everything is personal. Everything is about them. You listen, you console, you problem solve, but it never ends. You're not in a friendship. You're stuck in a storm that never passes. And it's not your storm. You're dealing with the drama magnet. Drama isn't emotion, it's emotional manipulation. Drama magnets don't just feel things deeply, they create chaos to control connection. They blow up minor issues into life-altering crises, involve multiple people in every conflict, constantly play the victim, then the hero, then the villain, all in one day. Why? Because drama feeds them. It gives them attention, relevance, and a false sense of importance. But for you, it steals your emotional clarity. It depletes your peace. And worst of all, it pulls you out of alignment with your values. What Stoicism teaches about emotional chaos. The Stoics had one core principle: don't react, respond. Drama magnets violate that principle with every breath. They need you to react. That's their fuel. But the Stoic mind doesn't play that game. It doesn't get baited. It doesn't enter battles it didn't choose. Because the moment you react to drama, you've already lost your discipline. And without discipline, your peace is for sale. The psychological cost of living in someone else's chaos. Being close to a drama magnet feels like constant fatigue without understanding why. Overthinking conversations that should have been simple. Feeling guilty for setting boundaries or even needing space. They teach you that calm is cold. Silence is betrayal. Self-focus is selfish. But here's the Stoic truth. Peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. How to handle the drama magnet, the Stoic way. 1. Stop trying to fix them. They don't want solutions, they want attention. You are not their therapist. You are not their savior. You are responsible for your own emotional energy, not theirs. 2. Practice the art of detached silence. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't absorb. Let them vent, spiral, rage, while you remain the stillness in the center of their storm. Silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves. Monsieur Thomas Carlyle. 3. Set psychological boundaries and enforce them. It's not enough to say, I need space. You must mean it, reinforce it, live it. Cut the cord between their chaos and your identity. You can care about someone without carrying everything for them. Reflection questions for inner freedom. Who turns every moment into an emotional spotlight on themselves? Do you feel drained, guilty, or out of control after engaging with them? Have you mistaken drama for depth and emotional volatility for connection? Emotional maturity is not reacting to chaos, but returning to clarity. The drama magnet doesn't want peace. They want attention. And if you don't protect yourself, you'll confuse exhaustion for love. But the Stoics remind us, peace is not found by avoiding conflict. It's found by refusing to enter unnecessary ones. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, don't remain grounded. Remain sovereign. Remain unshaken. If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change, for I seek the truth which never harmed anyone. Marcus Aurelius. There's a type of person who never shouts. They don't create chaos like the drama magnet. They don't lash out like the hot-tempered. They're calm, polite, reasonable, and absolutely corrosive. They are the naysayer, the person who cloaks doubt in logic and wraps fear in good advice. They don't attack your dreams head-on. They whisper, "Are you sure that's realistic? What if it doesn't work out? That's a bit risky, don't you think?" It sounds helpful, but it's not. It's poison in the form of concern, the subtle power of negative influence. The naysayer doesn't need to raise their voice. Their words echo in your head long after they leave. Why? Because they don't question your ideas. They make you question yourself. You start to second-guess your vision. You dial down your ambition. You begin to trade courage for caution, not because you believe it's right, but because someone else didn't believe in you. That's the power of the naysayer. And it's far more dangerous than open criticism. Why naysayers violate Stoic principles. Stoicism teaches us to filter everything through reason, not fear. But naysayers make fear feel like reason. They confuse pessimism with pragmatism. They label insecurity as intelligence. Epictetus warned, "It's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." And naysayers are masters of distorted interpretation. They don't see what could go right. They only spotlight what might go wrong. If you let them close, they'll gradually erode your confidence under the disguise of realism. How naysayers shape a life that isn't yours. Many people never fail, not because they succeed, but because they never start. Why? Because someone said, "That's not possible. Be careful. Who do you think you are?" And that voice, it didn't just speak once. It repeated until it became their inner voice. Now they live with safety but no satisfaction, security but no self-worth, comfort but no courage. How to handle the naysayer, the Stoic way. 1. Separate intention from impact. Not all naysayers are malicious. Some truly believe they're protecting you, but that doesn't change the outcome. If their words make you shrink, stall, or stay silent, they're not helping. Be kind, but be clear. I value your concern, but I trust my vision. 2. Filter feedback through logic, not emotion. Before accepting criticism, ask, is this based on data or fear? Is this coming from experience or projection? Do they walk the path they're trying to talk me out of? If the answer is no, dismiss it quietly, powerfully. 3. Build an inner wall of conviction. The Stoic doesn't need universal approval, they need internal alignment. When your intentions are rooted in virtue, growth, truth, courage, you don't beg for validation. You act. Let your courage speak louder than their caution. Reflection questions for inner clarity. Who in your life always plays devil's advocate, but never advocates for your potential? Have you delayed a dream because someone else couldn't see it? Are you building your life based on your values or their fears? Don't let someone else's limitation become your decision-making compass. Naysayers don't destroy you, they don't have to. They just plant enough fear for you to destroy yourself. But Stoicism gives you the antidote: self-command, inner conviction, a mind led by reason, not reaction. The next time someone tells you, "That's too ambitious," you respond only to someone who stopped dreaming. And then you keep going. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Seneca, we live in a world that worships positivity. Smile more. Think happy thoughts. Good vibes only. It sounds uplifting until it becomes a trap. Because not every moment is meant to feel good, and not every truth is meant to be sugar-coated. Some storms are meant to be faced, not denied, but the toxic positivist doesn't believe it. They cover every wound with glitter. They call pain low vibration. They treat emotional honesty as weakness, and without realizing it, they blind you with sunshine. The lie behind constant positivity. At first glance, they seem helpful. They're optimistic, cheerful, always upbeat. But when life gets hard, and it will, they respond with phrases like, "Just stay positive. Don't think about it. It could be worse. Everything happens for a reason." What that actually means is, I don't want to deal with your reality. I'd rather bypass pain than help you face it. Let's pretend everything's okay, even if it's not. This isn't support. It's spiritual avoidance. And Stoicism has no tolerance for denial disguised as encouragement. Why toxic positivity violates Stoic principles. Stoicism isn't about pretending life is good. It's about preparing for when it's not. It teaches us to face suffering with courage, not cover it with cliches. To see reality clearly, even when it's brutal. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Ignore hardship." He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that means we acknowledge the storm, but we don't let it control our inner weather. The toxic positivist does the opposite. They ignore the storm entirely, and they teach you to feel guilty for not smiling through disaster. The damage of forced optimism. When you're around someone who constantly avoids reality, you stop expressing yourself honestly. You bury emotions instead of processing them. You begin to associate sadness with failure, and that is dangerous. Because suffering that is buried doesn't disappear, it festers. It becomes anxiety, resentment, isolation, and eventually emotional detachment. The Stoics knew pain is a teacher if you're willing to listen. But the toxic positivist teaches you to silence the teacher and smile anyway. How to handle the toxic positivist, the Stoic way. 1. Replace forced positivity with rational optimism. Stoicism is not about being negative, it's about being prepared. A Stoic asks, what's within my control? What can I learn? What can I endure? You don't need blind faith. You need clear vision paired with grounded action. 2. Create space for emotional honesty. You're allowed to say, "This hurts. This is hard. I don't have it figured out." That's not weakness. That's emotional intelligence. And any relationship that doesn't allow that is not safe for your growth. 3. Stop mistaking denial for wisdom. If someone constantly tells you to avoid negative thoughts, ask, are they actually helping you grow, or are they keeping you comfortable in delusion? Pain is real, and Stoicism doesn't hide from it. It teaches you to train through it. Reflection questions for mental clarity. Do you feel safe expressing pain, or do you feel like you always have to be okay? Have you ever silenced your struggles to make someone else comfortable? Are you surrounding yourself with people who validate your growth or deny your reality? The Stoic does not deny emotion. He disciplines it through truth. Toxic positivity doesn't heal, it hides. And anything you hide from will one day control you. But when you face life with open eyes, even when it's uncomfortable, you'll reclaim your power. So next time someone says, just think positive, say this instead. I'll think clearly. I'll act wisely. I'll feel deeply and still rise. That's not low vibration. That's inner power. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Epictetus, we've all been hurt, betrayed, rejected, overlooked, undervalued. Pain is part of life, but staying stuck in it is a choice. The victim doesn't just feel pain, they wear it like a uniform. Their wounds become their identity. Their trauma becomes their conversation starter. Their helplessness becomes their comfort zone. And if you keep them too close, they'll invite you to join their world, a world where nothing is ever their fault, and everything is someone else's responsibility. When victimhood becomes a lifestyle, there's a difference between being a victim and living like one. We all experience injustice, but the Stoic refuses to let that define them. The victim, however, replays the same story over and over, blames others, the system, the universe, and avoids growth by saying, "This is just how I am now." But that's not identity. That's emotional resignation. And if you absorb it long enough, you start believing maybe healing isn't possible. Oh, maybe I should lower my expectations. Maybe I'm broken too. That is the infection of victimhood, not physical, philosophical. It attacks your sense of agency and convinces you that suffering is a life sentence. What Stoicism teaches about power and responsibility, Epictetus lost his freedom. His body and his status, but not his mindset. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The Stoic does not deny pain, but they refuse to be defined by it. To be Stoic is to say, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt, but now what will I do with it? That's not denial. That's self-command. The danger of staying around victim energy. When you stay close to people who live in constant victimhood, here's what happens. You become their therapist instead of a friend. You start absorbing their helpless worldview. You feel guilty for having hope or ambition. And the most dangerous part, you begin to mistake survival for strength. But Stoicism doesn't aim for survival. It aims for transcendence. Because surviving your past is not the goal. Rising from it is how to handle the victim, the Stoic way. 1. Empathize, but don't enable. You can care without carrying. Support their healing, but don't validate their stagnation. Say, I hear your pain, but I also see your power. What do you want to do about it? 2. Draw a line between emotion and identity. It's okay to feel lost, but it's not okay to build your home there. If someone defines themselves only by what hurt them, you must protect your emotional boundary. Their story is not your responsibility to relive. 3. Encourage ownership, not outsourcing. Real healing begins where blame ends. Ask them, what's in your control now? How can you respond differently this time? Who do you want to become? These are Stoic questions. They reopen the door to inner power if the other person is willing to walk through it. Reflection. Questions for inner strength. Do you feel like you're constantly managing someone else's pain while ignoring your own? Have you held back your joy because someone in your life always makes it about their struggle? Are you being pulled into someone's victim cycle or inviting them into your healing path? Victimhood is not a personality. It's a phase. You're meant to outgrow it. The victim wants sympathy more than transformation. They seek validation for their story, not elevation from it. But if you stay in their orbit too long, you'll forget that you're allowed to outgrow your past. You'll stop rising because you're too busy rescuing. Stoicism says you are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by how you rebuild. So don't sink to prove your empathy. Rise, and let that be the invitation. He who is not a slave to another's opinion is truly free. Epictetus. Not all threats are loud. Some come disguised as kindness, compliments laced with obligation, support that subtly erodes your confidence, smiles that cost you your voice. You're not being attacked. You're being manipulated, and that's what makes it dangerous. The manipulator doesn't raise their voice. They raise your self-doubt. They twist your emotions so that you can't tell if you're the problem or they are. Manipulation isn't about power. It's about confusion. The goal of a manipulator isn't domination. It's disorientation. They want you second-guessing your decisions, apologizing for your boundaries, feeling guilty for saying no. Because if you stay confused, you'll stay compliant. And the more emotionally intelligent you are, the more they exploit that. They know you'll listen. They know you'll care. They know you'll hesitate before walking away. That's the trap. And if you don't recognize it, you'll find yourself over-explaining, over-giving, over-apologizing, and undervaluing yourself. What Stoicism teaches about emotional sovereignty, Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But a manipulator doesn't want you to trust your thoughts. They want to insert theirs. They chip away at your confidence until you look to them for clarity. They want control, not by force, but by corrupting your inner compass. The Stoic refuses this because in Stoicism, true freedom isn't about external liberty. It's about mental clarity, the ability to think for yourself, feel without distortion, and act in alignment with your values, not someone else's agenda. Signs you're dealing with a manipulator. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. You find yourself justifying decisions that shouldn't need explaining. They reward you when you comply and withdraw when you don't. Your self-worth slowly erodes and you don't know why. This is not connection, it's emotional colonization. And if you don't guard your mind, someone else will occupy it. How to handle the manipulator. The Stoic way. 1. Reclaim your internal authority. You don't owe explanations for what protects your peace. If someone makes you feel bad for honoring your boundaries, that's not love, that's leverage. A Stoic knows, my peace is mine to preserve, not yours to negotiate. 2. Observe their patterns, not their words. Manipulators are skilled with language. They say the right things but repeat the same behaviors. So don't listen to their promises, watch their patterns. Then decide with clarity if their presence aligns with your principles. 3. Enforce boundaries without emotional leakage. You don't need to get angry. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to act, walk away, limit access, speak clearly, and then let your absence reinforce what your words already said. This is strategic detachment, the Stoics' ultimate form of emotional protection. Reflection questions for mental and emotional integrity. Do you feel emotionally lighter or heavier after interacting with them? Are you doing things out of alignment just to keep the peace? Have you started shrinking your voice to preserve their comfort? A manipulator doesn't take your power. They convince you to give it away. The manipulator doesn't need force, they just need access. But you have a choice. The Stoic way isn't to fight for control. It's to remove the need for their approval altogether. Because once you master your own emotions, once you take full ownership of your mind, you become unmanipulable. And that, my friend, is true inner power. We've come a long way, from complainers to manipulators. But there's one more silent threat left. Not the person who manipulates you, but the one who wears you down through indulgence, distraction, and lack of discipline. If you seek tranquility, do less or do what's essential, and do it with reason. Marcus Aurelius, they're fun. They laugh loudly. They say things like, "Come on, don't be so serious. Life's too short. Treat yourself." You can't be disciplined all the time. They don't yell. They don't insult. But their influence, it's quietly corrosive. This is the overindulgent. The person who makes mediocrity feel like a lifestyle and weakness sound like freedom. The lie of indulgent living. They promote pleasure over purpose, Escape over endurance, instant gratification over inner growth. But they don't call it weakness. They call it living in the moment. They call it being free. They call it self-love. But here's what they really mean. I'm avoiding discomfort. I fear discipline. I don't want to confront the version of me that could be better. And if you don't recognize the subtle erosion, you'll begin to call your own compromises balance. What Stoicism teaches about self-indulgence. The Stoics weren't anti-pleasure, but they knew that pleasure without principle leads to slavery. Epicurus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. But you cannot be free if you are a slave to your passions." Overindulgence isn't freedom, it's dependence with better branding. When you surround yourself with people who normalize laziness, binging, irresponsibility, and emotional numbing disguised as self-care, you start to build a lifestyle that feels good but rots you from the inside. The cost of tolerating the overindulgent. You delay your goals because there's always tomorrow. You abandon discomfort and with it, growth. You stop demanding excellence from yourself because no one around you does. Soon, mediocrity becomes culture, and you no longer rise because there's no one reminding you that you can. The overindulgent rarely destroy your life. They just slowly sabotage your standards. And that's enough to keep you from becoming who you were meant to be. How to handle the overindulgent, the Stoic way. 1. Don't argue or discipline them. You don't need to convince anyone to change, you just need to become the counterexample. Let your routine, clarity, and focus speak louder than their indulgent noise. 2. Reframe discipline as liberation. To the undisciplined, structure looks like a prison. To the Stoic, it's the path to freedom. Discipline isn't punishment. It's the ultimate expression of self-respect. 3. Protect your inner environment. If you're constantly around people who ridicule structure, belittle growth, and avoid challenge, change the room. You don't need to become a monk, but you do need to guard your momentum like your life depends on it, because it does. Reflection questions for personal power. Have you ever excused self-sabotage by calling it self-love? Who in your life encourages comfort over commitment? Are you living with intention or just reacting to pleasure? True freedom isn't doing whatever you feel like. It's having the strength to do what serves your highest self. The overindulgent mean no harm, but they normalize the very habits that keep you average. And in a world where ease is worshipped, discipline is rebellion. Live with restraint, speak with purpose, and build a life that makes indulgence look like a cheap substitute for what you really came here to do. Associate with those who help you become the best version of yourself. Epicurus, you've seen it now, not just the obvious enemies, but the subtle ones, the sweet ones, the ones who drain your spirit in whispers, not screams. Some call them friends, but their patterns tell a different story. They complain and call it connection. They lie and call it protection. They manipulate and call it love. They normalize weakness and call it freedom. And you've spent enough time tolerating what you know in your gut is eroding your soul. You're not just cutting people off. You're reclaiming yourself. This isn't about becoming bitter, it's about becoming bulletproof. It's not about being cold, it's about being clear. Because every moment you spend explaining your boundaries to someone who keeps crossing them is a moment stolen from your growth, your peace, and your greatness. You don't need more explanations. You need more execution. You don't need more approval. You need more alignment. What happens when you let them go? You create space for emotional intelligence, for self-worth, for inner peace, for spiritual discipline, and for a high-performance mindset that no longer bends for low-frequency people. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them regret. Your silence will say more than any goodbye ever could. Here's what you do now. If this video stirred something inside you, something that reminds you your peace is sacred, like this video. Let it be the spark that reinforces your emotional boundaries and reminds you that your mind is not a playground for chaos. Subscribe to Stoic Sage Academy for daily wisdom designed to fortify your mind, strengthen your discipline, and help you walk the path of true inner mastery. Here, you don't just learn Stoicism, you embody it. Every lesson is a step toward clarity, resilience, and unwavering self-command. Share this video with someone who is ready to stop tolerating what diminishes them. Someone who needs the courage to walk away from relationships, habits, and situations that silently erode their potential. Let your action inspire theirs. Drop a comment below. I protect my peace. I protect my path. Let the world see that you are no longer available for drama, manipulation, or low-frequency energy. Let it be your declaration that your mind, your time, and your life are your own. Remember this essential Stoic truth. You do not rise by seeking approval or acceptance. You rise by becoming unshakable. You rise by cultivating self-discipline, emotional sovereignty, and clarity of purpose. Walk in silence. Stand in truth. Let your actions speak louder than any applause. And rise like no one saw it. Because real power is quiet, deliberate, and impossible to shake. Your growth is not for validation. It is for mastery. It is for freedom. It is for the life you were meant to live.